Beyond, and hello everyone. My name is Jonathan Dormish. I'm your host for IGN's weekly PlayStation show, Beyond. I'm joined this time, for the second time this week, not just this week, by Lucy O'Brien.
Hello.
Max Scoville.
How about that state of play?
And Brian Altano.
Beyond.
We're here for episode, I guess, 590.5, whatever you want to call this one.
This is just a little in-between
The
one.
one about the state of play.
It sounds like a radio station.
Yeah.
People love it when you have like decimal points and half episodes and missing episodes. It goes over well.
It does. This is episode 590 over 358, and we are here to discuss the second Sony PlayStation State of Play. It just happened. We're recording this, I think, like 20 minutes after it aired. So we're going to be going down basically all the announcements, what we thought of it compared to the first State of Play, and also I have a lot of fan reactions, both from the Facebook group of Podcast Beyond as well as from my Twitter and the YouTube Beyond group. For reference, I put out a poll basically right after the second State of Play ended.
Yep.
And as of right now, and this is not a joke, 420 votes.
Dank.
I asked everyone what they felt about it. The choices were either loved it, didn't enjoy it, or meh. 53% said they loved it, 40% said meh, and 70% said they didn't enjoy it out of 130. 7% said they didn't enjoy it.
Okay. I was like,
So-
those numbers are weird.
I wanted to know, first off the bat, what you all thought of the second State of Play.
I loved it.
Yeah, no. I mean, I enjoyed it. It felt a lot more like a Nintendo Direct this time around. And I think considering it was 10 minutes long,
Just about, yeah.
there was a lot there. Like it fit a lot into a very short amount of time.
Yeah, I think, and I do want to talk about what they did and didn't include and sort of the flow of it and everything. But I feel like we should obviously talk about the biggest thing right off the bat, which is, of course, they re-revealed the Final Fantasy VII Remake.
That's right.
It
Thought we
was
were going to go with the Animal Badger game. But
Away?
Sure.
Oh, we'll
Yeah.
get to Away.
Oh, okay.
I'm really excited about that game.
The biggest.
I was thinking that I had to write it up. I was like, what animal is that? What animal is that?
A sugar glider.
I don't even know what that is. I've never heard of that.
It's the thing that people say immediately after you call something a flying squirrel.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
pretty much.
That's
I was a weird kid, and people were always like, if you could be any animal, what would it be? And without hesitating, I always said flying squirrel. Because people were like, why? And I'm like, well, because you could be like a mammal but also fly. And then people would have to explain to me that they couldn't actually fly and that they're sugar gliders.
If there is
And I was
They
like, this is why I don't go to
glide.
school.
If there's a mammalian version of like, dolphins aren't fish, or I guess that's not a mammal thing.
dinosaurs
or,
with feathers.
Actually, the spider's an arachnid. If there's a four-legged version of that, it's actually no, that's not that's a sugar glider. People always actually.
Thank
game
you all
should- the
for
game should be called
performing the first scene out of the Final Fantasy VII Remake. For me. I'm
Yes,
glad you
yeah.
all had the script in front of you for
Right.
that performance.
The delay was worth it.
Yes.
Sorry.
You're fine. The teaser trailer showed off some actual gameplay, some cutscenes, obviously referencing major moments from the original game, but we didn't get, of course, a release date. We did get a hint that there will be more in June. Square Enix, of course, has its showcase. They took the Sony slot this year for E3,
Yep.
so that's a pretty good place. There was also a Final Fantasy VII Symphony Orchestra the weekend pretty much right before E3, and that's where they've announced big Kingdom Hearts news when they did Kingdom Hearts orchestras, so there's probably going to be something there. What did you all think of this new look at Final Fantasy VII? It's been a while.
It looks gorgeous. I think there are some questions around the office about how it plays out, whether it's turn-based or not. It looks like it still is, but I still have questions about that thing they pitched from the jump, which was the episodic rollout of this thing. I'm really hoping that they just quietly scrap that and just make a game and sell it.
How much of a full-blown sort of like retooling is this based on what earlier stuff we saw? Because we heard the episodic thing.
So all of that news that we heard about that game was when it was being developed externally.
Yeah.
And then at some point Square decided to say like, hey, we're not happy with development as it is right now, and it was taken internally. I don't believe, I'm going to check the date on that news story, but I don't believe we've seen the remake since Square took it internally, and if we did,
haven't.
It was just one
Yeah.
shot.
No, it was the last time we saw it was PSX 2015, which is so long ago. And I think we can safely scrap a lot of those early early announcements.
Good.
Like
Let's
let's
go with that.
Yeah,
I like that.
I don't think we necessarily need to be bound to them. It was a long time ago, and as you said, development has completely shifted.
Yeah, that was in May 2017. Square announced that they had decided to take development internally. And I've spoken to Tetsuya Nomura, who directed, of course, Kingdom Hearts 3 and is working on the Final Fantasy VII Remake. And when I spoke to him in Japan last year, he basically said, yeah, now that Kingdom Hearts is winding down, I can finally put 100% of my focus. He's fully focused on this remake. So obviously this is a big project for them at the moment.
And he also said, I think to Famitsu, that PR for Final Fantasy VII Remake would begin in earnest after Kingdom Hearts 3.
Yeah.
was released. So, I think it's going to have a massive presence at E3.
Yeah, I think the state of play was very strategically timed right when it was, so Sony can sort of put their finger on this game before anybody takes a bite of it.
Out of E3,
But
yeah.
I think this was effectively them owning the mind share of this game. So you go in your head coming out of E3, PlayStation is where I'm going to play this game. I think a lot of people were leaning that way anyway, right?
Yeah.
But it's smart to get ahead of the announcements.
Yeah, and the trailer does end. It says more to come in June, which we assume is E3. It says PS4 on it, so they're still confirming this as a PS4 release.
Yeah.
I would be extremely surprised if after this much time in development they were like, oh, let's push it to the next one.
Yeah.
You're going to shoot to try to hit the biggest install base.
When do you think we'll see it next year? Do you think it'll be a 2020 launch and then maybe
I think
bridge
it will
the
be.
gap? Yeah. Or do you think they could surprise release it? If it is episodic, they could put out something.
It's late on a Thursday. I'm feeling pretty optimistic here. I think we're going to see something by the end of the year. I'm totally pulling that out of my ass. I have nothing to base that on whatsoever. But look at this sort of weird rolling thing that they've done where they I don't know if they call them demos or like there's the early version of Final Fantasy 15 that popped up that was like it's the first part of the map. You just drive around.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
You didn't you drive like a miniature car on a toy box or something? I can't even remember that.
Basically, like a bit of them. Oh, I remember that demo that they put out that you're talking about.
Yeah. Was there a Kingdom Hearts thing like that too?
There wasn't. They never put out a Kingdom Hearts 3 demo. They just had out a lot of events in the year leading up. But yeah, they never put that out. But Final Fantasy 15 they did, and I wouldn't be shocked if if it is a 2020 game. I wouldn't be shocked if there's a Christmas release of a demo for Final Fantasy VII and walk around the
so
opening.
cool.
That sounds awesome.
So cool. I'm really excited about this. Obviously, like a lot of people, I have like a nostalgia for Final Fantasy VII. It's such a masterclass in character design and like just that world kicks so much ass because it's like, hey, here, let's get sort of like a diesel cyberpunk filtered through like an anime aesthetic.
Yep.
In the late '90s, like it's just chef kiss,
Yeah.
And it's cool to see them sticking with it. Obviously, a lot of people are impatient for it, but the fact that it's a thing we didn't think we were ever going to get, and then we got it, and we were like, okay. That E3 where they announced that, Shenmue 3, Last Guardian, and was there another thing? Or was it just those three?
No, I think it was, I want to say 15 and Kingdom Hearts 3 were announced together.
Yeah.
I think that was together, so this was separate. But yeah, that was a big...
No, but I mean, like,
during that Final Fantasy VII
there was
year,
there was the one year where they just dropped, like, Sony basically did all the things that people were, like, daring them to do, and they kept sort of joking about doing, and then they just went and did it, and you're like, oh, crap, here it all is. And now we're finally, hopefully getting that.
This is also a very different story than, say, I don't know, Death Stranding or the new Kingdom Hearts game, where it's this kind of unquantifiable thing, or you're waiting for a decade-long story to end. This is a thing that we know, that we've played. It's a bona fide classic. They're adding new stuff to it, of course. But if they take their time with it and we have to wait a year, it's not like I'll be like, oh no, I don't know what this is. Like, it's Final Fantasy VII. It's been out for a long time.
Yes and no. At one point, am I crazy, or at one point did this look like a not turn-based? Was this like a real-time action game like 15?
I think it looked that way because I think the last Final Fantasy 15 we got that free-flowing combat, and it kind of looked like that to me.
Right.
But I don't know. It still could easily just be more fluid and still be turn-based.
I'm looking at the UI a little bit, and I can't exactly parse it from there, but it's definitely evocative of the original game. Right now I can see there's basically like a command menu on the side, and what's listed right here is Punisher attack command mode, and then you have everyone's like HP on the side. I wouldn't be shocked.
It's just not them standing in a line. That's why.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, that's a weird problem to have to be like to look at a UI for a game and be like, yeah, but what is it like when you play it? So we don't we sort of know what Final Fantasy VII is as a concept. As far as the remake goes, like it's been over 20 years. Like what.
We could see if they lean into Kingdom Hearts gameplay a little bit more, obviously, with Nomura having such experience with that franchise.
I put this in line with something like the Resident Evil 2 remake, right? Which is like, it's something that we know and we understand, but it still finds incredible new ways to modernize the concept and surprise us. That being said, I do think that this will be one of those cross-platform PS5 launch games. You can play it on PS4, but it's going to look really good for Sony to come out next fall and go, hey, Final Fantasy VII Remake, which is a bad title, is a PlayStation 5 launch game. Like that's just great mind share.
It's going to be bonkers if their lineup looks like every previous PlayStation's greatest hits.
Yeah,
they come out the gate with PS5 and they're like, hey, it's Spider-Man, God of War, Final Fantasy VII, I don't know, Shadow of the Colossus,
Crash Strikes
Last of Us.
Back.
Exactly.
I mean, to go, hey, we have the Final Fantasy remake and we have the brand new game from Kojima. Like, what year is it?
Yeah.
You know, that is a very bona fide vintage PlayStation. And throw a new Crash Bandicoot in there.
I mean,
I'll take it.
Bunch of cross-platform or cross-gen games, and then obviously backwards compatibility.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked. Obviously, we're speculating about everything. Who knows how much they're going to show at E3? Like, everything we just said could be absolutely wrong in a month, or they may not say much and just show a trailer.
I sincerely doubt they're just going to. I think we're going to get some crunchy details.
I hope so. Yeah.
They also didn't say E3; they said June.
June, yes, which is why I think the orchestra is a good candidate for it.
But I mean, we also don't know when Sony's going to do another state of play.
Yeah.
They could very well do something like, I mean, E3 officially starts on June 11th. They got plenty of wiggle room in there to be like, here's stuff that will be on the show floor. Maybe it's third party. Maybe it's hanging out, I don't know, at somebody else's booth or whatever. But
I mean, I don't think they're going to be just completely removed from that show in every capacity, right? Like, there'll be little tendrils of things everywhere.
Well, this is how they start.
They're working from home.
Seeds.
Yeah, they're working exactly. They're working from home. Just like glancing at their laptop.
They're transfar.
Half an hour.
I mean, the last state of play was the end of March. So we'll see when the next one comes.
Which was what, like 12, 13 minutes?
Yeah, it wasn't much longer.
Which is odd, because if you think about it, and had they held all these things, then we're already like 25 minutes into the hypothetical E3 press conference that they're not giving us, right? Like, they're already halfway there to a press conference.
Yeah.
But I guess they felt like whatever all of these will stack up to be is not strong enough to stand on its own.
Yeah, we'll continue to see how these go. But as for this one, moving on from that, another remake to mention, MediEvil, got a release date. Is of course coming out in October 25th. We got like the first actual trailer for it. That wasn't the teaser image last Halloween, and so just about under a year we'll be getting the game on October 25th.
I think we have a lot fewer questions about this one in terms of how it will play and how it will structure. It felt very tethered to its roots.
It looked a little, and in that regard, it looked a little dated.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, oh, this doesn't feel like it's been updated for a modern audience with modern sensibilities. It just feels like it's medieval, but prettier.
Yeah.
No, it's like the Crash remake kind of thing. I feel like that's a thing we're going to see a lot more of people using the architecture of a game, and it's, depending on the game, there's only so much you can actually do with that.
Well, we have like the same word that we apply to everything, and it's remake, right? Like Resident Evil 2, Final Fantasy VII, Crash Bandicoot, and MediEvil are all remakes, right? But some of them are complete overhauls.
Yeah.
And some of them are a gorgeous coat of paint, like something like Shadow of the Colossus.
There are a lot of like weird buzzwords that people use internally for things like this. Like, for example, I would call Resident Evil 2 more of a reimagining than
that's
a
a
remake.
good buzzword.
Right? But it's such a buzzword, and it irritates me, but it actually like says a lot about what that game is, rather than, okay, this is exactly the same gameplay, these are the same levels, everything plays out exactly the same, except it's built in a modern engine.
What's good is Other Ocean Interactive is in Emeryville, which is across the bay from us, so we can maybe have them in there and talk to them about this. But Crash, the team of Vicarious Visions told me they worked on that. Essentially, they were lucky enough to have wireframes from Naughty Dog's original development and were able to build over that for a lot of levels. Whereas for Spyro, they did this weird hack called the Spyroscope, where they built a tool in a emulated version of Spyro that completely essentially mapped out the levels as they originally were, because they didn't have the original files of how those levels were built. And so they essentially rebuilt those games and then created their games on top.
They made a LiDAR emulator, basically?
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's really impressive what they did for that. I don't know the scope of what they've had to do with MediEvil. We don't know the state of it.
That's so fascinating. We've talked so much about like video game preservation on the show, but I've never really thought too deeply about like the actual structure of a video game and how you save it. It's sort of like saving a PSD as a JPEG.
Yeah.
And then not being able to mess with the layers ever again. That's a Photoshop document for those of you that don't have to mess with that.
For reference, for those who might not know, Other Ocean, I'm on their website. Games they've contributed development toward in one form or another, listed on their site include Rick and Morty Virtual Reality, Minecraft, the Nintendo 3DS edition, iDarb, Yu-Gi-Oh! Legacy of the Duelist, Thimbleweed Park.
Which Monkey Ball game is that?
Super Monkey Ball is just listed.
What?
Yeah, I'm going to look that up.
Interesting.
Hey, make that next. I love that one.
I'd love a new Monkey Ball.
Me too.
I visited their studio a million years ago when they were doing a War of the Worlds adventure game that was based not on any of the movies, but on the original H.G. Wells novel.
Did that ever come out?
I think so. That was like close to a decade ago, and it was Yeah, like I took the bus to get there. Been a minute.
I'm going to keep looking this up just out of curiosity while we move on, though, to the next announcement, which is the Monster Hunter World Iceborne expansion got a release date. We've known about this for a while. It is coming out September 9th on PS4 and Xbox One.
The baby cats can throw piss on you now to bring you back to life.
That's the central
Cats
game
love
mechanic.
tossing piss everywhere, too.
Apparently, the community has been demanding that green cat piss more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you should definitely be on their PR team.
They ported Super Monkey Ball to iPhone.
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
So like
then that
working horse studio basically.
yeah.
Yeah, they've done a lot of port work, it seems, but obviously this seems like a little bit more than just a port. So
Side
we'll
note,
see.
that port of that game from iOS either vanished entirely or just got aged out with like an OS update because that doesn't exist anymore.
Oh, weird.
Yep.
That's a shame. Anyway, so the Iceborne expansion coming out September 9th, 2019, with a PC release date of sometime this winter, which could end up being 2020. Obviously, Casey DeFreitas is our lead Monster Hunter expert. She wasn't around when we were all watching, but everyone basically just went, Casey, what does this all mean?
Everyone was looking
Tell us."
around for her, but
Yeah. And they, unfortunately, it's while we're recording, but they're essentially, Capcom is hosting their own live stream to go into more detail about this. They're calling it like a huge expansion that seems like almost a new game's worth of content. It seems to be that they're packing in, which is awesome.
Frozen Wilds, basically.
Once
Yes,
again,
yeah.
I walk away like disappointed with myself for never being able to click with this series because it looks gorgeous. The monster design is super cool. That giant nightmare bat is awesome.
But did you
That's
play,
a good critter.
Yeah.
Did you play World? Because I never clicked with it either, and then I clicked with Monster Hunter World.
Interesting.
Yeah, like fully. I mean, I haven't played since it came out, more or less. But I'm gonna get back
What, have
into
you been
it.
playing like other games?
Believe it or not.
Well, obviously Monster Hunter's not for you. You either play Monster Hunter and just Monster Hunter, or you don't play Monster Hunter. I wanted to throw one thing in here. It occurred to me that like someone out there, MediEvil is their Spyro or their Crash
Yeah,
or their
absolutely.
Mario.
Yeah.
I
There is absolutely someone.
I
don't.
don't.
It's gonna get a little higher here.
No, I don't. I'm not comparing it to those.
Yeah.
I have like fond, sort of vaguely happy memories of messing around with MediEvil at some point.
I think
but again,
we
it just,
all had vaguely happy memories.
Right.
Like I think this is the interesting sort of question I have around MediEvil, and I this isn't me throwing shade. Like I'm just genuinely curious. Like who is this game for?
it's for Sony.
Yeah.
It's for Sony and that one person who I'm trying to get to write into our Facebook group with their fond MediEvil memories.
I'm going to look in to see if anyone commented in the Facebook group about MediEvil. But also, I feel like it's a game that should have come out a year ago. Like in between the Crash and Spyro hype, this should have been in there
Yeah.
to help capitalize on all of that.
I mean, but it's also kind of that weird thing where it's like, oh yeah, Crash and Spyro, hell yes, absolutely. All rights belong to Activision, and Sony obviously has their thing there, but I guess you've got MediEvil, and then it's who are the other sort of like but sort of between Crash and Spyro, and then like Jack and Daxter and Ratchet and Clank. There's sort of this weird like gray area, and we got Spider-Man.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. I think that whoever out there listening to this, if you have like super fond like beloved childhood memories of MediEvil, like write in.
Yeah.
Well,
Tell us about it.
they already did
Did they?
3 minutes ago when we were like, no, but
All right. I don't know.
they were there.
That's a call to action.
Devin from the Facebook group said, I wouldn't say that fall is that far away. They're going on about another conversation. I am kind of surprised that they didn't spend a lot of time on MediEvil trying to really hype it up. They made a point to say this was mostly about that before the show. I am surprised it was a relatively short trailer. Like Iceborne, I think, had as much time, if not a little more, than MediEvil
Yeah.
did.
No,
even
I
though it
think
was
you're
supposed to be
totally
the
right.
marquee thing. And then Eno, I believe EINO, asked, do you guys think MediEvil looks good? You'd expect it to look like Crash, Spyro, and Ratchet and Clank remasters, but this feels like it's not even close. I would say a couple bits of the gameplay looked a little bit rough. Obviously, there's, just 5-6 months of polish left.
Yeah.
that they
There
can
were
do
a
on it,
few
so-
I hate the phrase
like sucking in the teeth moments.
Yeah, I hate the phrase mixed bag because it sucks.
Mixed bag.
But there were definitely parts of this game that looked like relatively dated or extremely dated compared to other parts of this game that looked very good.
Yeah, yeah. There were definitely parts of the trailer I was like, oh, that looks like a lot more fun and like seems to be working more cohesively than a couple of scenes. So I'm wondering
Yeah.
where some of that stuff may have been taken from in production.
I like the sort of tone. I like a lot of the character models and stuff like that. I would say that like if you had no nostalgia for this franchise and you really no understanding, like a modern PlayStation 4 gamer, and you looked at this trailer, I don't really know if you'd walk away being like, oh, I got to buy that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know? You might be interested.
I never played MediEvil, despite my love of Crash and Spyro and other platformers and games of this ilk. I'm excited to try it for the first time just to see what playing it in a modern incarnation without ever having played before is.
Me too. Like, I remember playing it and being like, even as a kid, where I would play everything, you know, because we could, you know, you couldn't afford. There weren't so many games, and you couldn't afford, and blah blah blah. And I remember being a little bit like, even back then, just being like, oh yeah, this is fine. So
we'll see how it goes over. Obviously, it's October 25th, so we have a bit of time. And if we need to ask them questions, we'll just run across the bay. Anyway, Iceborne comes out September 9th. Obviously, stay tuned to Casey DeFritas, who will have a lot more coverage of that on the site.
Hell yeah.
Moving on from that, Predator Hunting Grounds was announced.
God damn it.
Max, how you feeling?
I was literally, I want to say earlier this week, like in the shower or something, just being like, I want a Predator video game. I want a new Predator game. I think I willed this into being, but I had that wonderful cone of disappointment moment where they hyped this thing up. We had like sort of 3 dudes at the same time go, that's the Predator music. And I was like, well, I can see which guys in the office watch Predator a lot. But like, you know, it starts out and you're like, oh, there's some tactical men walking through the jungle, and that's great and all very well and good. And then you hear like, you know, and it's like, oh. And I was like, oh, great. And then it was like, you know, it's of course in big letters, not actual gameplay. And then they were like, oh, it's going to be multiplayer, asymmetrical.
Yeah, so
it's going to be Evolve, basically.
Predator Hunting Grounds is an asymmetrical multiplayer experience where a group of players are in control of a fire team, essentially running through the jungle with, you know, a bunch of standard military weapons, while one player will be the Predator, tracking them down using the standard Predator weapons.
It's not even Evolve. It's literally Ghost Recon Wildlands DLC.
Or Friday the 13th, the game.
Yeah.
Right.
Which, this is made by Ilphonic, who contributed to development on Friday the 13th, the game.
So that's actually when the announcement, I looped back to the top of the cone of disappointment to the exciting part, and I was like, okay, I actually liked what they did with Friday the 13th, and if it's got that level of weird jank, but it's also Predator, like lovable jank. I
don't think it will have that jank. I think that it will be much more polished, given that like the Predator is a little bit higher rent than like Jason.
Well, and also 20th Century Fox's logo is all in on this, and Fox has made a big play for like gaming in the last year or so. They're really pushing for that. So
I just hope that like the sort of playground is interesting, because what I liked about Friday the 13th is the setting. Yeah. As much as anything.
And that was made by like hardcore horror nerds. So we're like, we need to recreate the barn that the teenagers made out in too. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, if the location or multiple locations that they have in the game actually are intriguing to run around, I think that could make for a possibly fun experience. But
I agree.
Like, you will want to be the Predator. Yeah, you're not going to be a fire team dude.
Right.
Yeah, that's such a I feel like that misses the point about like what would be like everybody wants to be the Predator, so to have 4 people not being the Predator is sort of like, I
mean, I don't know. I think it's
being reductive.
Gunman, yeah.
I think it's okay. Being those men sucks. I don't care about those men at all.
Well, if
Predator
you're being
rules
the exact men from the Predator films, that's another story.
Counterpoint: being hunted by a Predator could be fun, and fighting the Predator could be fun.
Counterpoint: they could also introduce DLC that puts an alien into it.
I don't know.
And then we get AVP, the best of the movies.
Maybe.
They won't do that.
I just want Shadow of Mordor. I want Shadow of Mordor, except you're the Predator.
Ooh.
Yeah, I was really like looking for some sort of single player adventure game. Like that's what I wanted from that. You know, I just want more. It does. The fundamental nature of Predator does kind of serve this type of game.
Yep.
But. Yeah, there was part of me that as soon as that the subtitle came up, I was like, oh no, okay, that's not going to be like, because it's kind of it's a bit cheap. It's like a little bit cheap, the subtitle. And I was like,
what's the subtitle?
Hunting Grounds.
Yeah.
It's coming out 2020, so we don't have too much info about that otherwise.
I mean, we're also totally jumping the gun here.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. I want it to be great. I want an amazing, I want an amazing Predator game.
I would like some single player stuff. Like something to do as a single player.
This is a stupid question. Did Concrete Jungle ever come out?
Concrete Jungle was delayed to the fall in the last State of Play. It was supposed to come out in the spring, and then they announced it was coming out in the fall.
Not Concrete Genie.
You're right. Wow.
Predator,
that's where my
Predator
mind is.
Concrete Jungle.
Wait, there was... Oh, God.
That's like...
It's late on a Thursday.
There's a Daredevil game that never came out that I get mixed up with a Predator game that did come out that I think I I never played.
IGN Entertainment gave it a 5.5.
Okay, so it wasn't great. That's probably why I didn't.
Initial release date April 15th, 2015, according to Google.
Then there was that early 2010
Sorry about the Concrete Genie
Sega. What was that early 2010 Sega game that was like Alien vs Predator vs Space?
That was just called Alien vs Predator.
Is that what it was
really
called?
confused the matter.
Which was like the same name as the movies and an arcade game.
Same. Well,
yeah.
The movies really just are terrible.
Oh, they're also AVP, I guess.
Right. Directed by Monster Hunter director Paul.
No, I know they're terrible, but I think they all had the same name. Anyway,
Alien vs Predator from Sega came out in 2010.
Oh, that was Aliens vs Predator.
Aliens, yes.
Okay.
Excuse me.
You know how goddamn confusing that is? There's an Alien movie, there's Aliens, then there's Predator, the Predator, Predators, and then Alien vs Predator, and then Aliens vs Predator, the video game.
So Alien vs Predator is not
AVP.
regarded as canon by Fox, as I understand it. Like
they started the cinematic universe. They should goddamn finish it. Can we talk about the squirrel game?
We can, but just for reference, Aliens vs Predator got a 7.3 from IGN.
I liked it.
Is that the PC one?
That's the PC.
That one's dope as hell. That was great.
Yeah, it came
console
with
version
consoles,
got
too.
a 7.
I played it on consoles.
And an 8.5 from the UK.
And the second one's
Scrabbles.
The second one's better, right? Wait, are we talking about the?
We're not talking about the films.
This is the game.
The older one though.
The movies are 2 out of 10s.
There's 2 PC games that everyone loves, which are very good, and then there's the follow-up one that sort of was a little bit not as good.
This is such
You're
a
asking me to
confusing
do a
franchise.
lot on the spot.
Oh, it's so confusing.
Don't forget it. Let's talk about the squirrels.
All right, very quickly, just to mention, River Bond is coming out this fall, or this summer. God, it's Thursday, end of the day. It's coming out this summer. They showed off a bunch of cameos from other indie games that'll be essentially playable skins for your character in this like sort of dungeon crawler, voxel-based looking game. Very cute pixel art sort of style.
It kind of looks like Castle Crasher meets 3D Dot Game Heroes.
Yeah.
Very, almost like a by the books indie game, like paint by numbers indie game, but also really fun looking. Like the kind of thing I would totally play.
I feel like it could be a really fun like party game sort of thing. It'll have cameos from Shovel Knight, who's of course in every game, Lovers in Dangerous Space Time, Guacamelee. I spelled Guacamelee wrong in this article.
Weird to see him with a sword, by the way.
Guacamelee?
Yeah.
He should just punch with things.
He's a wrestler.
Anyway, Max, tell us about the squirrel game.
Oh,
Away.
Yeah. Away.
Away.
This has been announced for a while. This is based on animals and nature, which is awesome.
Someone said that it was based on that, like Blue Planet.
Who kept saying that? Somebody kept saying that during the presentation. I think it's
Lucy. That was you.
Was it me?
No.
Did I just make that up and start shouting it out?
You just kept
Lucy's
saying
been dead for 80 years.
The official description says inspired by nature documentaries. So,
no, I mean I could have told you that.
Which are in themselves inspired by nature.
Yes.
You could, yeah. So anyway, it's based on the actual world of animals, and I guess the whole thing is you're playing like last surviving animals out there. This is so much fun. I'm so excited about this. I say half jokingly I want a realistic Crash Bandicoot game, but in all honesty,
This will get you there.
Yeah,
there's so much cool shit out there in the real world, and gamer developers are like, what if we had a guy who could jump really high and was still just a regular man? And I was like, there's flying squirrels and Goliath bird-eating spiders and anacondas out there. Do something with it. And they're doing it. They're being like, let's...
But didn't you say that in your in your realistic Crash Bandicoot game that you wanted him to like wear a little pair of underpants?
I've gone back and forth about that. I think they should be cosmetic DLC, but it's... I don't know. This is
Max and I were both talking about how this evoked a very, very unpopular but beloved Nintendo Wii game called Deadly Creatures.
I remember Deadly Creatures.
No one remembers Deadly Creatures until you talk about it, and then you're like, I remember it. Which
I
is a
do
game
because
about,
NVC here wouldn't shut up about it when it came out.
very
or we
weird,
can
right?
review whatever it was at the time.
So Deadly Creatures was a third-person action game about scorpions and snakes and spiders, and weirdly enough, in the sort of periphery of the video game, actual real Billy Bob Thornton and the actor Dennis Hopper argued in the back about a bank heist that they had successfully pulled off and where they'd hidden the money. And you, playing as, I believe, a spider, went through houses and like dusty ravines and all these wretched places, while these two giant almost like the way they did Nanny on Muppet Babies.
Yeah.
Huge people where you only saw their feet
I feel
would
like
yell
that
at
was
each other in Southern accents.
the rare occasion where like the focus group or the board of investors is like, yeah, we really want to get some Hollywood actors, and there's got to be like a bank heist involved. And they're like, we already started making a game about a tarantula.
Yeah.
Like, figure it out. This is a game that sounds too good to be true, but is in fact
very real.
Too weird to be successful enough to warrant a sequel.
Yeah, and it never got ported or anything like that. Never got a sequel. But
It's so weird because I so vividly remember the cover art.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, because the cover art was amazing.
Yeah.
It was
Very
just two
frightening.
animals fighting, and it said deadly creatures on the front of it.
And this looks very much like a spiritual successor to that, but it looks like you're in a big old sandbox. And
yeah, what I like about it is the way it handles scale. Just by nature of there we go. Just by nature of having a small animal running around, everything in the world feels gigantic, and I love that. You know,
I'm 6'5" or 6", and I am terrified of Goliath bird-eating spiders. I cannot imagine how frightening they will be when I'm playing as a sugar glider. Mm-hmm. I had to remember the name of that stupid.
You got it right,
I want to say flying squirrel. I love how I don't know, like Far Cry or Ghost Recon or whatever. It's like we added squirrel suits, and they're like, oh yeah, we added squirrel. Actually, the fruit sugar glider.
Sugar glider sounds like a sexual name for when you're dating a rich pilot. This is my sugar glider.
Wow, that's.
I don't know why I did that.
I'm something what you call a
so
sugar
good.
glider. That's right. I have older gentlemen. They take me hang gliding on the weekends over wine country.
Oh my god.
Sony
Sorry.
also
I'm
revealed
so
the Days
sorry.
of Play Special Edition PlayStation 4.
That's true, which is interesting.
Yeah, Days
Limited
of Play.
edition.
Yeah, limited edition Days of Play PS4. That will come out in June when that event comes. At some point in that month, I assume they'll probably announce it the week of E3 or something and release a big indie game that week. But that's sort of their summer of arcade sort of thing these days.
It's very beautiful.
And that pretty much wraps up everything that was talked about in the State of Play. Again, it was only about 10 minutes. I wanted to first start off with what you think of that showcase as a showcase in itself, and then how do you think it compared to the first State of Play?
So a lot of our feedback from the first one was that it felt sort of like a disconnected from humanity. Like there was no. They're obviously evoking a very Nintendo Direct style, unabashedly stealing all the best parts of that thing, but they're missing the sort of talking figurehead. I feel like I noticed that less this time around, maybe because I'm getting used to the cadence of the whole thing, but I actually really liked it. The way it flowed, the motion graphics were awesome, queuing up the sort of next game in the playlist by showing you this small subtle hint of what it would be, and then flipping over was really good. The entire thing was incredibly tight, brisk. It was over and done in 10 minutes, and I feel like it was just a nice Thursday afternoon gift from PlayStation.
Yeah, and
here you go.
Exactly, and I really enjoyed the fact that they were very upfront about the fact that it was going to be short. They were just here's a brief look at blah, blah, blah. It was just very here you go. We're not making all these grand promises and then giving you a 10-minute thing.
I think tempering expectations with the initial PlayStation blog post was the best move to get things off on a better foot with this one.
I thought it was going to be two things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which made it better.
They were like, we've got a thing with, we're talking about MediEvil and then another thing. And it was okay. And then it was oh, no, this is 7 things or whatever, 5 things, whatever.
What was the brand new game? Because
Predator.
Predator.
Yeah.
Predator would be the new
Weird.
game. Yeah.
This, it feels like a video magazine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really kind of wonderful in that sense where you're they're coming up next. You're this sort of this table of contents type of thing. And then you're ooh, and then it sort of gives you this little, oh, here's when it's coming out. Here's the information. It's wonderfully clean and tidy and not up its own ass. And as much as I love all the weirdness we get from E3 press conferences, they don't make any sense. They especially don't make any sense in 2019. Just this morning, I posted a pre and post show for the Ghost Recon Breakpoint reveal thing, which Ubisoft effectively did the same thing. They've we've got a captive audience, we've got an existing community of people who care about this game. Let's talk directly to them instead of doing this weird, a giant net that we cast that catches nothing but garbage. The stuff we get out of E3 conferences, all of the weirdness you get is because they're trying to appeal to everybody at once and appeal to no one in the process.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I feel like that's going to feel damn near antiquated by the end of this year's E3.
Oh, yeah, for
Just
sure.
the stiff-shouldered businessman model.
Yeah.
You gamers love what we have this year. Yeah, that sort of presentation.
Every year there's a Lionel Hutz type character that is comes onto the stage and we're gonna sell you some stuff, and it's
but it's if you got to do that with your blazer and t-shirt, do it on a green screen.
Yeah.
And put some cool motion graphics behind you.
Yeah, turn into a Muppet.
Yeah, make it fun.
So much fun.
And keep the script tight so you don't get out there and you're you say something and people start clapping. You're yeah, games are really what we're all here for. Yeah, we all love games.
By gamers for gamers.
Yeah, it's just weird. It worked for so long, and that was the way to do it. And now we have a new way, and I think that's the way it should go from here on out.
Yeah, I think what they did, so we were saying again, the first state of play was at the end of March. It was March 25th, I believe. And this is, 6-ish, 7 maybe weeks, I don't know how to count, since that last one. That's a very quick turnaround. And I think what they wanted to do with this one, excuse me, was to prove, especially with Final Fantasy VII at the end, like, after the negative reaction to the first one, hey, you need to pay attention to these. Like, these will have things you care about, even if you don't have a PSVR. Like, I think the PSVR focus of the first one, without them communicating that, really backfired on them. Even if so many of those games look great, it's to a smaller part of the audience. That's not to the wider audience. And there's nothing on the level of a Final Fantasy VII Remake in that first one.
Yeah.
I do think they still need to figure out the balance of it, because I would say Nintendo Direct does a really great job at having that top tier stuff like a Smash Brothers or an Animal Crossing or something like that. It has mid tier stuff that you also are enjoying, and then it has smaller things. I felt like this time around, because there were only 7 things, the difference in magnitude of things really shows more. Whereas in a Direct, not that I want each of these to have 30 games and be 35 minutes and whatever, but when you have 30 games, it could be like, oh, 1 or 2 of the smaller games, whatever. If in this one you're like, Final Fantasy VII, that is the thing to talk about, that's it. Oh yeah, there were a couple of these other games, regardless of how good they end up being. They could be Game of the Year candidates for all I know, but because there are so few, you can sort of see like the stark difference in reaction.
Yeah, the flow of it is definitely it's getting better for sure.
Yeah, I think
I think that was like a cool little Easter egg at the very beginning that some IGN editors noticed, where it started off with a small chime from Final Fantasy VII. People were like, "Wait, that's what that." Oh,
I liked that. Yeah,
interesting Easter egg. Where's this going?
I think if they can find ways to do that more often going forward, that can maybe be how they find their voice and make what a state of play is distinct from Nintendo or a Inside Xbox.
Yeah. And I've said this 100 times for these kind of things, but I love the way these things take small games, big games, and sort of put them all at the same table. It's super important, And
they get the talking head, like figurehead people out of the way.
Yeah,
they let the games be the games, and it's great.
Moving on to just some reactions, and if you guys need to wrap up anything, I know it's the end of the day, so understand if you need to hop out, but just a few reactions from the Facebook group, which is facebook.com/groups/podcastbeyond. A lot of people replied to my thread. Thank you so much. Wanted to read a couple of them. Richard said, I thought this was an excellent pre-teaser for many of the developers that are going to be at E3. I think it also was a nice way to tell people that PlayStation might not be at E3, but don't forget about us. We're still here and going strong. And I do think that's important. Like, obviously, we're in this bubble where we are constantly thinking about the industry and thinking about these companies. A mass audience might not know. Don't expect PlayStation news in June when you normally expect to hear it.
Right. And this is obviously, this is a thing that they can do because they're winning.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is a thing that they can afford to do. And that's because they laid the groundwork for an amazing console 5 years ago, 7 years ago, And because of that, they can roll into this summer being like, we're good. Here's our short film in May, and maybe we'll see you in June. Maybe we'll see you in July. They did say at the end of the thing, we'll have more to show later this year, which is, I don't know, either tomorrow or December.
Yeah, it could be, who knows when that is.
Right, exactly.
Moving on to a couple more. Devlin said, one choice I do find strange was announcing the new PSVR bundles yesterday. Why not just make the thing today 30 seconds longer and announce that behind the State of Play PlayStation to pad things out? Would have added a nice punch, I think. And obviously, like, speaking to the PSVR audience, that would make sense.
Totally agree.
Especially when they highlighted all those games. I do find it weird not to be like, hey, reminder, half those games still haven't come out. I could see them being wary about the blowback.
Remember when Sony released a PlayStation phone called the Xperia Play, and then like a couple months later released the PlayStation Vita, which had a 3G card? Sometimes the right people don't talk to each other. Those are, I would imagine, totally different departments, and the fact that they already kind of had their PSVR like state of play.
Yeah. Moving on to a few others, a lot of people obviously commented Final Fantasy VII. Oh my God, that was pretty much the chorus of all of this. Michael did bring up, it's still literally a bunch of blog posts tied together with some voiceover. Nothing more. It doesn't have to be more, but it surely could be. Right now, it's not an event.
I don't think it needs to be. I mean,
I wanted to ask what you all thought.
Well, I just feel like we've kind of discovered that it does not need to be an event. Like, I think that this is a really effective way of pushing out information. And yes, I agree that there could absolutely be a little more personality, but I don't think we're going to find personality in those like, those talking heads.
They have an event. They have PSX. If they want to dust that off and do something with it, they can.
Right. Well, I would say, like, if you look at something like this, which is hyper-focused and quick, and then you compare it to their last, potentially, as we know at E3 press conference, which was bloated and meandering, like literally meandering. They force the crowd to get up and move from theater to theater. That's the way not to do it. And if you don't think this is the way to do it, I think it's at least on the right path.
I think it still needs refinement,
Yeah.
and I think this was a much stronger showing, though. Eric on Twitter actually said to me, it has a problem with pacing the big stuff and could use a bit more discussion to cool off between reveals. And yeah, I think the pacing thing is one of the biggest things they can find out. I do like the beginning and end points of like sandwiching major games at the beginning and end.
Right.
I think that's a really solid way to go.
I mean, that's what every E3 press conference
Exactly.
ever has done.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
the big things at the beginning and the end, and then like everything else in the middle.
Yep. I mean, the thing of like not giving you a second to breathe with some things, that is very Nintendo Direct.
Yeah.
I mean, there were moments there where like our news team's scrambling, screen capping, like they'll put up 15 logos at the same time, being like, "Here's all the things that are coming to Nintendo Switch." You're like, "Oh my God!" Calm
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
I don't. It's 10 minutes of commercials. Like that's kind of the point. I don't pause it. You know, I feel like take control of the situation here. All of the breathing room that we see in like press conferences and E3 stuff is because there are technical stuff. It's technical shuffling around
they have to
happening
do.
behind the scenes.
Yeah.
This is kind of circumventing that, and it's sort of I don't know. I understand that mentality of like the pacing, but it's not a movie. It's not a game. It's
I was in the theater for Sony's press conference 2 years ago in LA, and they would play a trailer and the room would go dark, and in that time 15 people would quietly shuffle onto the stage, dressed like shadow people, and like hang all the corpses from Days Gone, and then pull it all away, and then be like, "Oh, God of War's here." Glue some axes to the wall, like that kind of thing. Like that, I don't think that's necessary in a situation like this.
I mean, it's very theatrical, and I think that's what we're used to because that's what we've kind of grown up with, I suppose. But it's not really necessary when you think about it. It's great for the people in the theater, but meh.
No, I mean the majority of the people who watch stuff at E3 are not at E3.
Yeah.
So maybe account for them. And also, I don't know, I feel like if they dropped the brand new FF7 footage during E3 in the middle of the Sony presser thing, a handful of people would be talking about it for a year and a half, as some of us have demonstrated. But also, I don't know, it would be buried 45 minutes later when they announce something else.
Can I add a note too? Like that this
can't.
Okay, sorry. No, this format completely circumvents that awful 30 seconds every single time there's an E3 live show and someone is filming a theater stage screen and you're what is that? And you hear like, and then it pops to the full screen and cuts over. This circumvents all of that.
How they don't have that timing down is insane.
Yeah, and so
it's crazy.
So we don't have to sit there being like, what are they saying? What are they doing? What is that? What are they showing? Now we just see it, and that's the way. I mean, I don't play video games in a theater.
No.
In front of 1,000
Oh,
people.
you don't?
I try not to.
That's what I do.
My
every
apartment's not
evening.
that big, but. I think this is the way to show games.
I'm going to just read a couple more impressions just because so many people wrote in, and I do want to make sure we highlight a few of those. Max, you have to head out, though.
Yeah, I got a date with an important computer-generated rodent from a competing video game console company, if you know what I'm talking about.
Lucky's Tale?
Lucky's Tale, the movie.
The movie.
Yeah.
Impressive. We'll enjoy hanging out
Parole
with that
officer
rodent.
Lucky's Tale. He's back, buddy.
Enjoy, have fun. People can find you at Max Scoville.
Yeah, I'm around.
Dude, I'm going to the movie with you. Should I leave too?
Yeah, you should leave. Take the hint.
Lucy.
I'm going to leave too.
All right, fine. I'm just going to be in here myself for the last 5 minutes of the show. I'll see you guys later.
I'll stick around
I'll say
for one
whatever.
more.
Oh, I appreciate it. Just going to
Bye,
quickly
guys.
say
Beyond.
Bye, Lucy.
I'm coming.
Nikki said, I am quite liking the format so far, being given frequent, short, and snappy updates where we say, can you believe them?
No, I can't. They
No,
sold this out.
They don't have the PlayStation Pass.
They do not, and that's why they're not in this room today. Beyond.
They're also fired. They don't know that, but that's what happened. Anyway, Nikki said, I'm quite liking the format so far, being given frequent, short, and snappy updates where we see new trailers, new gameplay, new upcoming indie games, get release dates announced, etc. Everything shown was new. There was variety. It was good. Looking forward to the next one.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think if they can keep that focus, obviously you don't want to retread territory from the last State of Play. But I think if they can continue to do these things, I just don't want them to do it because they feel like they have to.
No,
I always
no,
want
no.
there to be a reason for
I
these.
agree with that.
Bango, just to give a little bit of a different perspective, Bango also said
Bango?
Bango.
It's a great name.
Bango said it was an underwhelming. It was as underwhelming as I expected. Nothing there for me personally. Again, ending with a third-party game. I know people are excited about it, but it's not a PlayStation game specifically. I'll be excited when we know they can talk about next-gen games. Not much left in the tank for PS4. And obviously,
He's right.
that is a lingering thing. We have the 3 big PlayStation 4 exclusives that we're waiting to hear more about. PS5 is around the corner. there's a lot they could talk about, but of course there's time in between.
Well, I mean, what, there's 100+ million PS4s out there, right? You have to, I know we're all on the cutting edge, right? If you're listening to the show, maybe you're there and you're like, I can't wait for PS5. I'm going to put everything behind me. There's 100 million something people that are going to be sitting there going like, I'm going to stick around with this thing for a little while. Show me what I can still play on this console for a couple years.
Yeah, exactly.
So
two more things real quick. Salvador on YouTube, which is youtube.com/IGNBeyond, said it was like a sandwich. The beginning and end was awesome. The middle was meh. I assume he means from the start to the end of a sandwich, because if he's talking about like top, bottom, and middle, if the middle of your sandwich is meh, you have a bad sandwich. Yeah, that's not a sandwich.
When you go into a sandwich place, you don't ask for the star is not the bread.
Yeah,
it is the center of the sandwich.
You can pretty easily get the bread.
Yeah,
it's the combination. But I assume he means from like the first bite to the last bite, sequentially through a horizontal sandwich.
But even
that it should still be good in the middle. I get the metaphor. I just don't agree with how you enjoy sandwiches, Salvador. But thank you for writing in either way. Last one, Derek said, I went into it with tempered expectations. I think a lot of people did.
Yep.
I was hoping Sony would end it with a bang and was not disappointed with the new Final Fantasy VII trailer. I suspect the third state of play will come next month around the time of E3 with huge updates, trailers on first-party titles and other AAA games. I think they will do a big first-party, like the releases to come state of plays in the future. I don't think it will be during E3.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think even that would, if they do something, which I still think they might, it's going to mix in third-party stuff as well, and indies and everything.
Yeah, it's going to have to. And I think they would do a state of play. If they're going to do one in June, I think it will be after E3.
Yeah.
When the storm is calmed and everyone's like, oh, we're done. We can rest until Comic-Con. No, here's a state of play.
Perfect.
I think that'll probably be when it happens. Anyway, Brian, thank you so much for joining me and no one else on this episode.
I mean, you know what? I don't give up. That's what it's all about, really.
That's
like,
the
it's
truth.
about that PlayStation passion, and I think this show has had it for so long, and I guess some people just don't. And
They
I'm
went
glad
to
we
go
stuck
see
around.
a Nintendo movie.
I'm going to go see it too, but like I'm not. I got to finish the job here.
And you're on the
That's what it's all
Nintendo
about.
voice chat show.
That's right.
Anyway, Brian, thank you so much for joining me. You're at Agent Bizzle on
That's
Twitter.
right.
Max is at Max Scoville. Lucy is at Luce O'Brien, LuceObrien. I'm at JM Dornbush. Beyond normally airs every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Pacific at beyond.ign.com, youtube.com/IGNBeyond, as well as on any podcast services you're listening to. This is a happy, fun, free bonus episode. So I hope you enjoy it.
Enjoy.
Thank you so much for listening or watching, and as always, Beyond.
Beyond.